Most people don't understand why they feel powerless. They wake up in a world that runs faster than their nervous system can process. They scroll through highlight reels, inflation charts, and success stories that don't belong to them. And deep down, well, they feel like they're losing even when they're doing everything right. Work harder, save more, keep up. But somewhere between the late nights and the rise in products, they realise a quiet truth. They're not saving time anymore. They're spending it just to stand still. And that's where the zero point 0.01 worth of Bitcoin holder lives, in the gap between illusion and awareness. They see what the crowd doesn't. They feel the trap closing and step sideways instead of forward. Now, 0.01 worth of Bitcoin, 1 million satoshis, isn't just a number. It's a mindset. It's what happens when someone stops outsourcing their future to a system that profits from their confusion. Now, I just quickly want to chuck this in here. If you haven't stacked your first million satoshis, well, this playbook, free playbook, will really help you out. Now, what I'll do is link this down in the description below. See, the psychology of the 0.01 Bitcoin holder begins with a simple shift. You stop thinking like a consumer and you start thinking like a builder. Now, consumers ask, what can I buy? But builders ask, what can I keep? Because deep down, every person in this era is fighting the same invisible war, the battle between dopamine and discipline. Now, the system feeds you endless choice, endless noise, endless comfort, because comfort keeps you compliant. But the moment you buy 0.01 worth of Bitcoin, that's your 1 million satoshis, well, something flips. You begin to value clarity over convenience. You start to notice how easily your attention is bought and sold. And you start to realize that every decision you make is either inflating your peace or protecting it. Now, 0.01 worth of Bitcoin isn't just a hedge against inflation. It's a hedge against manipulation. Because owning Bitcoin, even just a fraction, rewires your brain. It teaches you the difference between money that melts and money that holds. It teaches you patience in a world addicted to speed. And it teaches you conviction in a culture that worships volatility. And those lessons bleed into everything else you do. You stop chasing every new opportunity. You stop reacting to every headline. And you stop comparing your chapter to someone else's highlight reel. Because you start playing a different game. A long game. The sovereign game. Because the 0.01 worth of Bitcoin holder doesn't need approval anymore. They don't need applause. They're quietly building leverage that can't be seen, can't be printed, and can't be taken away. Now, that's not a financial mindset, that's a psychological evolution. And it usually begins with curiosity. You hear about Bitcoin on a podcast, a friend, a meme, and you shrug. But then you look closer, and you start connecting the dots. Inflation, debt, money printing, control. And for the first time, the story you were raised on, work hard, save money, retire safe, stops making sense. And something inside you whispers, if this system rewards obedience, maybe freedom means disobedience. So you buy a little, just 1 million satoshis, which is 0.01 worth of Bitcoin. And that one act rewires everything. Because the moment you trade fiat for Bitcoin, you realize what real value feels like. You feel weight, you feel permanence, and you feel truth. And you stop thinking about getting rich, and you start thinking about getting out. And from that moment on, you see the world differently. See, most people treat their money like oxygen. They assume it's neutral, always there, always fair. But you, well, you see the matrix code. You understand that fiat doesn't just measure value, it manufactures dependency. And it rewards people who play along and punishes those who pause to question. So when you hold 1 million satoshis, you're doing something radical. You're saying no more. No more invisible taxation. No more velocity addiction. And no more chasing digits that die faster than you can earn them. Now you've turned money into a mirror, and it's showing you who you really are when the noise fades. See, the 0.01 worth of Bitcoin holder isn't defined by what they have. They're defined by what they refuse to trade away. They refuse to sell their time for comfort. They refuse to sell their attention for distraction. And they refuse to sell their sovereignty for convenience. Because once you understand the principles behind Bitcoin, that's scarcity, proof of work, decentralization, you start living by those same laws. Your word becomes scarce. Your effort becomes proof. And your attention becomes decentralized, spread only among what truly matters. Now that's why Bitcoiners think differently. Now they're not pessimists, they're realists who finally stopped believing in permission. So let's go ahead and zoom out for a second. For the last 100 years, humans were trained to think like employees of a financial machine. You were rewarded for obedience, not originality. You were taught to earn, not own. To save, not question. But the 1 million sats holder, that's 0.01 worth of Bitcoin, represents the opposite archetype, the sovereign archetype. Now they've exited the attention economy and entered the responsibility economy. They understand that freedom isn't something you're granted, it's something you secure. And that's the psychology shift that terrifies the system. Because once enough people think like 1 million sat holders, that's 0.01 worth of Bitcoin, the entire incentive structure collapses. And the system can't sell fear to people who no longer believe in scarcity of opportunity. It can't sell hope to people who already have purpose. It can't sell debt to people who understand value. And that's the quiet revolution. See, every era has its anxiety. Ours is the fear of falling behind. But 0.01 Bitcoin holders have transcended that fear. They no longer chase, they store. They store energy, they store time, they store focus. Because once you hold value that doesn't erode, you stop living in survival mode. You stop sprinting on the treadmill of urgency, and you start walking with intention. And that calm you feel, well, that's agency. And that's what real wealth feels like when it's detached from noise. So, who is the 0.01 Bitcoin holder really? Well, they're patient in a culture of panic. They're disciplined in a world of dopamine. And they're optimistic when the news screams despair. Now they don't react, they respond. They don't predict, they prepare. And they don't diversify, they decide. Because they know something most people don't. Stability doesn't come from systems, it comes from self-trust. And self-trust compounds like Bitcoin, slowly, invisibly, then all at once. Now there's a quiet moment that every true Bitcoiner experiences. Now it's not when the price pumps, it's not when you buy your first cold wallet, it's when you check the chart during a crash and feel nothing. Now that's the moment you've crossed over, when volatility stops triggering you because your conviction is stronger than your conditioning. And that's the day you stop being a trader and start being a time traveller, because you've locked part of your life into the future, a future the system can't touch. And from that moment on, well, everything changes. Because what you're really holding isn't 1 million satoshis, your 0.01 worth of Bitcoin. You're holding proof that you saw through the illusion. You saw that inflation isn't growth, that convenience isn't safety, that dependence isn't love, it's control. Now 0.01 worth of Bitcoin is the receipt for your awakening, a reminder that freedom isn't loud, it's silent, patience, and self-custodied. And once you've felt that kind of ownership, everything else feels rented. See, the world thinks you're early because the price is low, But being early has never been about timing. It's about awareness, and most people won't understand until it's too late. But you, well, you already do. You already made the mental leap from consumer to sovereign, from scarcity to certainty. And you're not waiting for Bitcoin to moon, you're waiting for humanity to catch up. And that's the psychology of the 0.01 Bitcoin holder. They're not gamblers, they're guardians of truth, of time, of integrity. And when the world finally wakes up to what they've been holding, it won't be their net worth that rises. It'll be their sense of peace. So if you're holding even 0.01, your 1 million satoshis, don't underestimate what that means. Because you didn't just buy a digital asset, you built a new operating system for your mind. And you've joined the first generation of humans who own their time outright, who understand that the ultimate flex isn't wealth, it's unprintable peace. So keep stacking clarity, keep stacking conviction, and keep stacking sats. Because the real revolution isn't technological, it's psychological. And it already started with you. Now, one last time, if you do want to come and check this out, this is completely free, and it is my playbook called The Stacker. Now, if you've made it this far, and if you're not too sure what to watch next, well, I have this playlist for you just here, which you can go ahead and binge watch if you enjoy watching my content, or if you just want to watch a single little video, you can click on this one just here, which is recommended to you by YouTube.